Ever since League has been a competitive online game, there are several certainties. Number 1, don't chase Singed. Number 2, the enemy Yasuo will always be better than your Yasuo. And number 3, if you're in lower MMR and lower ranks, don't play Vayne, play Annie. Play Annie in every single role. Joking aside, this makes perfect sense to help someone get better, and there is a very good reason on tier lists for climbing, especially those for lower ranks. People will tell you to play Garen. The thing about easy champions is that they do allow you to eliminate many variables from the game. If you're in silver, it is extremely beneficial for you to remove as many variables from your gameplay as possible, and you can do this by one-tricking easy champions. There are so many things that go into League of Legends and winning enough games to climb the ladder. Don't get me wrong, there are microplays and mechanical outplays, but there also is macro, laning, trading, farming, sieging, diving, roaming, summoner spell usage, warding, teamfighting, champion select and ban strategy, not tilting, role identity, item builds, and runes. That's a lot of stuff, and to learn all of that at once is really difficult. Now, imagine you had to do all of that and execute your champion at a high level, not missing crucial skill shots and combos, and being clean with every single ability. It's not enough just to know that you can make a play, but actually executing on that play is what makes the game what it is. There is a very clear distinction between a challenger player who one-tricks Vayne and a silver one who is playing her for the first time in a ranked game. This concept has been understandable for years, and the advice you'll get from higher ELO players is to play easy champions so you can work on your skills one at a time. However, recently, a Reddit post brought to the forefront something interesting, that certain hard-to-play champions have very respectable, and in some cases, awesome win rates, with fairly significant play rates. It is pretty unusual to see this, and even in some of their best times in terms of being overpowered at higher ranks and in pro play, champions such as Thresh, Riven, and Zed typically didn't have good win rates in lower tier brackets. So what happened, and why is this occurring, and should you even play and learn these champions? Before we analyze why this is happening, I have to state something very clearly. There are always going to be people to say that these champions aren't hard. Some may say Thresh isn't hard, Zed isn't very hard, Riven is really easy, Vayne is broken and takes no skill. In order to talk about these champions, as long as we can agree that these champions have easier versions of themselves, and they are harder, but not necessarily difficult, we can have a meaningful discussion. If we can just accept together that Blitzcrank is the easier version of Thresh, even though yes, their kits are different, that's okay. If we can accept that Talon is the easier version of Zed, even though their kits are different too, that's fine. If you want to play a bruiser, and bruisers are good at the moment, you don't always have to lock in Riven. There will be some easier options. If your intent is to 1v9 your silver games because your team is holding you back, you don't have to pick Riven. You could play Jax or Renekton and probably pick them up a bit more quickly than you would her or Fiora or Irelia. As for Riven, she is one of the most hotly debated champions at the moment, and for a good reason. She tops the charts at both win rate and play rate for a lot of cases, which is rare for a champion like her. Most of the time, she is the League of Legends equivalent of a pub stomper, where a smurf gets her in a lower rated game, or a norm and wreaks havoc on everyone, ruining their day. Really good Riven players make her shine and seem OP, and bad ones make people question why she even exists, and why didn't you just pick Maokai? Part of the reason Riven does so well right now is that her items and runes are overloaded and too powerful. With both the Conqueror and Kleptomancy setup, building Death's Dance into Spear of Sojin and Black Cleaver make her far tankier than what is fair, while also having a crazy amount of healing, and that's the core reason she is easier to play than before. When lethality and squishier items are what you have to build on Riven, such as Ghostblade and Duskblade, bad Riven players can be punished easier for their positioning, because without her shield she is a really squishy champion. But right now she is basically a DPS and a tank or an off tank at the same time, allowing bad positioning to be forgiven while also fitting into more team compositions. If you can play Riven, there is almost no reason not to pick her right now because she truly does fit into every team comp. Riven offers everything you need right now, and she fulfills the role of top laner perfectly. Given the fact that she is too tanky, allowing her to be more forgiving with her positioning, that's why you see her win rate and success be higher. You don't have to be the most amazing Riven player to make her work at a semi-decent level. In a very similar boat, let's move on to Thresh. Thresh right now is a bit notorious for having people pick him who rarely land hooks, yet they still get to win the game. So much of this reason is because of Aftershock as a keystone. In older seasons, if a Thresh wasn't very good or out of position and missed a hook, he would be heavily punished. He has no way to help himself get out, and Flay was decent at disengaging, but ultimately you're still squishy and would chain feed if not played well. Because Thresh synergizes so well with the rune, getting to guarantee every single time with Flay, which has a massive AoE hitbox that he gets to proc his Aftershock and walk away from these bad situations, poor Thresh players are not punished. Landing just a few hooks during the course of a game is usually enough to win because of the rest of his kit just does so much. Lantern saves your allies, your ultimate is a great slowing and disengaging tool that also does decent damage, and if you hit one hook eventually, you'll guarantee a kill because in Season 9 everyone does so much damage. Your Press the Attack Lucian will one-shot the Jinx that got hooked. In general, champions being too tanky that get to have bad positioning and not be punished is a huge reason why they can have better win rates. Most of the time tanks do have good win rates for this reason, since they may not feed as much as an extremely squishy champion would, such as Sona. The buffs that Zed received on patch 9.4 are quite good and can definitely help explain why he performs well and made it into S tier this patch. His W makes him even more safe and more scary now that it has a range of 1950 on a lower cooldown. This makes it easier to engage and kill your target, but also to get away. You don't have to be perfect with this ability to make it useful for you. Also, because of the damage buff to your Q, and because Last Whisper is once again back to its roots having total armor penetration, this means Zed doesn't have to hit a triple Q combo to blow someone up. When assassins have crazy amounts of damage, it's self-explanatory why people who aren't masters of the champion can still be successful. You aren't necessarily forced to hit every single skill shot, or in the case of Zed, as many Qs as you needed to throughout the game. Buffing his attack speed growth also isn't something that you should underestimate. It will genuinely make it easier to last hit and CS under tower on him, which does lower his learning curve. Zed's state right now reminds me of how, at times, even though LeBlanc is a really tough champion to play, she has had such high numbers at certain points that it was too easy to get fed and carry because hitting chain was optional, and CSing and properly farming and pushing before roaming didn't really matter. Lastly, there is a bigger picture reason why these champions can be performing at a high level in lower ranks, and that's because of the pacing of the game. This meta is highly early game focused, and if you win lane, you typically do win game. Fighting over crabs in the jungle, diving 4-man bot lane, securing dragons, and pushing your lead to victory are common occurrences. This does have a massive impact on champions that are difficult to play because you have less room for error. As long as you solo kill your opponent with Conqueror or Riven a couple of times in lane, as long as you win your level 6 all-in with Zed's buffed Q damage, as long as you get one double kill on Vayne, you typically will be strong enough to carry and end the game very quickly. Remember that when games don't go 40 minutes long, you simply can't be punished for bad macro play, because there is no macro play. If you make the enemy team FF at 15, you don't have to know how to Baron bait, Baron dance, secure Baron, and siege with it. It hasn't even spawned yet. Playing your hard to play champion and just doing one thing right, which is securing a couple of kills early game without being forced to play around vision, without being forced to side lane, split push properly, find that perfect flank at 35 minutes on the ADC to carry one team fight. Because you don't have to do that anymore, it makes them much easier to execute. It is a systemic problem with the game at the moment, and it's one of the reasons that even though it feels horrible to lose a 50-minute game and be stuck in games of League for a long time, I am someone who does prefer a bit slower metas. I do feel like I get to use my brain a bit more and enjoy playing the game from a macro standpoint too. Anyway, those are just a couple of the reasons that these champions do well in solo queue at the moment, but if you would like to do well in solo queue right now, check out Mobalytics at mobalytics.gg, your all-in-one platform for improving and getting better at League of Legends. I'll leave a link in the description down below where you can sign up today for free.